Example 5. A prove. They say prove the alternate exterior angles theorem. Do you have a question? Okay, let's hear it.
Alright, Mr. H, I honestly do think you try to tell us the truth most of the time. Most of the time. Maybe not all the time. But what I want to know is, I know the stuff that you're telling me is right. I can see it, I'm getting it, I'm understanding it, it's clicking. So why would I really need to prove it? If I know it's right, what's the purpose of proving? I mean, I know it's true, so why can't I just accept it?
You know, you do bring up a valid point. Why do you need to prove something that you know is true? Well, if you know it's true, and you can't prove it, how can you honestly argue that you know it's true? I mean, if you know it's true, but you can't prove it, is it true? Can you show me that it's true? If it's not provable, then it's going to just basically come down to an argument of, nope, I'm right, or no, you're wrong, and it's just going to keep going back and forth. There's no way to show that the other person's wrong. So what we do is we set up this proof system where it just gives us a foundation to be able to argue a point and show somebody else that our point of view is right, and it's solid. It's not necessarily, I think I'm right. It's, this work shows me that I'm right. The very first thing that you do whenever you're doing a proof, though, is to draw a diagram, if they do not provide one. If I'm trying to prove the alternate exterior angles theorem, what do you think we would need? Ah, yes, go right ahead. You would need the best looking diagram on the planet. Okay, it would have to have lines and something with angles. That's all I know that we're doing in this section, but I know it has to have that. Very good. Yes, we would need two parallel lines with a transversal. It doesn't matter how you draw it. Generically speaking, this is what I drew. Alright, now that I have a diagram, I have to figure out what I'm going to need here. The first thing that I know I'm going to need is a pair of alternate exterior angles. And I just chose these ones, personal preference. Okay, nothing more than that. However, now that I've chosen a few angles that I'm going to be working with, in particular angle 1 and angle 3, because I want to show that they are in fact congruent using proof, now I need to know what I'm given. Well, you're coming up with it yourself, so you're honestly asking, what are you given? Well, if I'm trying to prove the alternate exterior angles theorem, what's the if part? Yes.
Oh, he's looking at me. Do you remember what the if part is? Alright, so it says something along the lines of two parallel lines are intersected by a transversal, then the other part. So it's if two parallel lines are intersected by a transversal. Something about lines being parallel or transversal.
Very good. So what you're saying is I would need to have two lines being parallel. I don't have that yet. So let's make that so. Line M and line N are parallel. There we go. Great given. Well, what am I really trying to prove, Mr. H? Well, what's the then part of the alternate exterior angles theorem? Yes, go ahead.
Oh. The then part of the alternate exterior angles has to be alternate exterior angles are congruent.
Good. So what you're saying is I need to get angle 1 and angle 3 to be congruent. There we go. I now know where I'm going, where I'm starting, and I can do this proof. Yeah, all I did was say prove the alternate exterior angles theorem. But with the if, then, you could fill in your own diagram. Now, if you would have put all 1 through 8 for all these angles here, that would have been fine, but you honestly only need these 3 to prove it. So I gave you a little bit of a deal, or shortcut. Well, if I know lines M and N are parallel, the only theorem I can't use is the alternate exterior theorem, exterior angles theorem, because it wouldn't make sense for me to prove this theorem using this theorem. It's like saying I'm right because I'm right. If I'm using this theorem to prove itself, no. It's like when you define a word using the word. Doesn't work because you haven't made it any clearer. So, the very first step I would do is write line M is parallel to line N. State reasons given. 2, well, the thing that I know that I can always assume, because I can't prove to you why the corresponding angles postulate works, that's what I'm going to use. The only pair of corresponding angles that I have written here are angle 1 and angle 2. So why don't I say they're congruent? So, here's the full proof. That's the first step I told you, and then this is that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And that's because of the corresponding angles postulate. Yep, again, I use that one because I can't prove it. So I know that it's where I start. If I can assume that corresponding angles are congruent, then I can build my case for everything else. So let's use that one preferably. So I have angle 1 being congruent to angle 2. And I know that because those lines are parallel. If I did not have line M being parallel to line N, I can't use any of the theorems or postulates you have learned in this section. Okay? No go. Now, I look at angle 2 and angle 3. Those are vertical angles. So why don't I say they're congruent? They are. Vertical angle congruence theorem is the official name. However, it just says vertical angles are congruent. And it's actually shorter to just say vertical angles are congruent. If you say it that way, I'm fine, but the official reason is the vertical angle congruence theorem. And the last thing, if I have angle 1 being congruent to angle 2 and angle 3 being congruent to angle 2, well, angle 1 and angle 3 have to be congruent to each other. And the reason is transitive property. I'm getting rid of that middle domino, that middle step, because they're both congruent to angle 2. They're both congruent to each other. That's the full proof. You now know why you can use the alternate exterior angles theorem. It's proved to you. You know it's true. You've seen the steps. You've seen how the dominoes fall and how this has to be true. If we didn't have proofs here, like I said, how do you know it's actually right? We're trying to get you to develop the why thinking. I know it's not easy. If you need help, please come and get it, because I'm more than willing to help you. Other than that, I'm pretty sure that's it for examples, so I hope Section 2 treats you relatively well, and have a good day.